So how much of the World Juniors have you watched to this
I
point?
watched less Canada, more of other teams, but I watched. And the thing is with Canada, like you almost take it for granted who they're playing because you expect. I don't say that they're just automatic wins, but you expect if they play Latvia, they should win, like with the depth and all that stuff. So it's like I watched a lot of that game. I watched the U.S. game a lot, and then missed most of the other ones. Checked in here and there.
So you did watch Canada Latvia. Okay, I was gonna go to Latvia. This was gonna be my starting point about the World Juniors. Okay, so Canada Latvia game. Latvia wins in the shootout. Now I'm not saying because Canada just lost last night to Czech, so they're out. But I'm not saying Canada was necessarily the best put together version of Team Canada junior team, but they're not bad. So the Canada Latvia game, after, during, whatever, the like they're getting carved. Like Canada's getting carved about that Latvia game. Okay, now the game that I watched is Canada dominated possession. They had 60 shots, and by any metric of watching the game, Canada probably should have won the game, in my opinion. But in the middle of watching the game, it was so funny because Jake that works with us, he texted me. He goes like as a question, something along the lines of like, hey, "Is this our team?" Like question mark with my 18U team, because my team on paper we're not from an ability standpoint, we're not as good as most of the teams that we play. But then we play them, and when we go and play them, like we have a game plan of what we're going to do, and we're very good at executing that game plan a lot of the time. So what we do is my three things that I say like our themes every game are: we have to lock up inside the dots, like we have to own that ice and be a pain in the ass. We have to get shots to the net, no matter what, because we don't get a ton of opportunities to get shots on net. So when we do, we have to get it to the net. And then three, like as individuals, like whatever you can control, you have to focus on doing your job. So if you're the winger, that's the walls. That's making sure that you're in the shot lane on your D. If you're a centerman, you have to win faceoffs. Those are my three themes basically every game. And so I'm watching this Latvia game, and Jake sent me this text, and I was like, seriously, like, how about they did a good job?
They
right?
did a great job.
How about they did a really good job? And then on top of that, their goalie played unbelievable, which our team's the same. Like our two goalies play unbelievable, like all the time.
They played Sweden yesterday. Did you watch any of that game?
Yeah,
Latvia?
yeah, same thing, right?
They got the exact same thing. They worked like dogs,
right? Almost pulled it out, right? They were right knocking on the doorstep. Even the game against the U.S., they lost 5-1, but like they missed two breakaways. They had opportunities, and that's not to say U.S. didn't dominate possession or Canada didn't dominate possession, because they did, but they are executing their game plan. On paper, the skill level is much different, but they're coming up with a game plan and they're sticking to it to be successful against these teams, which they were the whole tournament, basically. Like if they didn't get rocked one game, there was not even one game they got rocked, you know? So to your point, when we started talking about this, well, we're watching different games. That's what I kept thinking watching this Latvia game, and then hearing the commentary afterwards, like what's wrong with Canada? They have all these issues and whatever. And to some degree, for sure. But I'm also like, Latvia did a really good job. Like if they try, like
against
anytime,
everybody, you're 100% right.
Anytime Canada or whatever team tried to get inside the house, it was like there's a stick on you, there's somebody in the way, there's somebody laying out, there's somebody blocking a shot, and so they made every team work.
Yeah. It wasn't one shutdown guy doing a shutdown role. It was everybody in as a unit playing, defending hard.
So I think I don't remember if it was the U.S. game or the Canada game now, but there was one guy on Latvia, I forget who it was. He was wearing a cage. It was one of the younger guys. He had like 3 or 4 shot blocks in the same shift. It was one of those like highlight reel things where like everyone was going crazy because he soaks the first one and he's like falling over, having a hard time getting up, gets up, blocks another one, gets up, and they're like cross-ice one-timers. Like these are cannons from guys that can shoot. And he's just like taking it in the chest, taking it in the knees, like whatever. So that was the first thing when he said watching different games, like that's what it reminded me of. And when, for a lot of fans of the game, like I'm sure a lot of the people listening watched that game or watched some of Latvia play.
Well, in Canada, they watched.
So like that's a little reflection point for you, is like, what was your perspective coming out of that game? Did you think wow, Canada played so awful, or are you at least giving some like credence to Latvia actually played a really good game, and after that close game with Sweden, I thought even though it was 5-1, close game with the U.S. From the if you actually watch from what
But
their
they had
game plan was,
possession
yeah, from what their game
until they
plan was,
didn't.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like they weren't their game plan was not to outpossess the other team. It was like I'm sure it was lock up the middle, bide your time, wait for your opportunity, and then try to capitalize on it. And that was like the first thing I noticed watching that game, where it was like this, these guys are legit, man. They're not like it's not these aren't flukes. Like you don't have a fluke game against Sweden, the U.S., and Canada, right? So did how much of the Canada game did you watch the whole thing with Latvia?
No, I missed the.
Did you watch any of the full games, like any of the Latvia games in full, or no?
I watched pretty good chunks of their games
Yeah.
though. For
Is that like a
whatever reason,
fair?
it just happened to fit my schedule.
Is that like the good? Is that a? Did you agree?
Yeah,
Is that what
like
you thought coming out of it, or did you have different thoughts like from those
well,
games?
I honestly, I never like. Okay, so a couple years ago, it was I think it was Switzerland. Someone else has big tournaments. It's like I never take it. I never take teams for granted. I never do. I never do because all it takes is a team that has some skill or outwork or well coached or whatever. Like I never have. It should be a cakewalk. I never ever think that. That's why last place teams beat first place teams. It's whatever. But I know that those teams, if they don't buy in to a system, that they get destroyed. So that's like it's almost like the way you well, actually is the way you want to play, right? You take a team like Canada, and I'm not carving Canada. I'm not. I'm just saying like you take a team like Canada, you get a lot of guys that are drafted in the first, second round of the NHL. Of course, you think you're the best team, right? You're going to look at the Americans and say, okay, that's going to be a big game. Sweden, yeah, those will be big games. But you go in there thinking that you're good, and I don't until you're very very humble or very very seasoned. You don't go into hockey games thinking that you could be an underdog or that you like how I'm saying this is when you're really good, the work ethic, you don't have that underdog mentality where you have to do all the little things. That's why you'll see a lot of guys struggle when they're on good teams, or I don't even want to say good teams. You see guys struggle, teams struggle when they're good because they think they're good, and that's good to have swagger. But then you got to remember that what makes you good, right? What makes you good? Are you just playing one way? Is everybody defending? Is everybody pulling the rope at the same time? Because if not, then if you're too worried about I'm a goal scorer, or maybe you have to do a little bit more checking. Can you play that role? Are you willing to play that role? And this is what it all comes down to, right? So I would say that if you had um, the Canadians, for example, had a mentality of like whatever it takes. Actually, the words "whatever it takes," and I'm going to do my job to a T with a forecheck, back check, neutral zone, dump it in, finish hits, block a shot, no selfishness at all, play for the team, then you probably get a different result. And I know that might have sounded like a backhanded compliment or carving the team a little bit, but it's just like to me, it's reality, right?
So
You got to learn a lesson sometimes.